4 games in the Bundesliga today. Of course, our main focus is on the Klassiker. Borussia Dortmund taking on Bayern Munich, and it would be Bayern Munich who'd win the game by 1-0. Joshua Kimmich's beautiful chip in the first half, proving to be the difference between the two sides. For more on this match, let's welcome in, shall we, Frank Leboeuf, Shaka, Hislop and Craig Burley. Craig, let's just start with you. Obviously, one of the big rivalries in Germany, and it felt like a proper match today, didn't it?
Yeah, and didn't that piped in fan noise just take the edge off it again, or is that just me? I mean, I really felt that took the edge off it. I know it's fake and all that, but at least we had something other than that tinny noise. And look, Dortmund had it all to do. We know that. You know, Jan Fjordhoff and myself and yourself discussed it yesterday. They couldn't afford to lose the game. Well, they did. And I suppose the final third, particularly early on, was where it sort of fell down for them, because they had some good play, some good switches of play, but their final ball was poor, and ultimately there was a great piece of skill from Kimmich. But, and I'm interested in the goalkeeper's perspective here, but Burki should have saved it. And in those big moments, league titles are won and lost.
Let's talk about the goal then, shall we, Shaka? How much at fault was Burki for it?
Well, this probably won't surprise anybody. I just thought it was a good finish, and
Kimmich
did well to
he
spot
got a
break off
hand
his
to
line.
it.
You asked me my opinion.
It's an own goal.
How can you say it was a good fit? Well, listen, it was executed very well. How can you say it was nothing but a goalkeeping error when he got a full hand to it?
Mm-hmm. He's backtracked. I just think, listen, he's backtracking at this point. Can't get any power on it. I think it's just easy just to say you get a good full hand on it without any kind of other context to it. Like I said, this probably surprises no one. I sympathize with Burki.
Frank, goalkeeping error for you?
Oh yes, it's almost an own goal. I think he wants to chip the ball over the crossbar and miss it and put it into his net. So, no, that's a good finish. Well tried. But if you don't have that mistake from the goalkeeper, it's never a goal, for sure.
Craig, of course, brought up the fact that Dortmund in the final third just weren't clicking as maybe we'd seen them click so well in those first couple of matches, Frank. And this is what the game is down to, isn't it? Those details, those level of qualities, particularly in front of goal.
Yeah, that was crucial for the result, and they had the opportunities to score. Allen had couple of them during the first half, and that's true that there was a lack of finishing in the way that we know they are capable, because they've done it so many times the past games. So yeah, they missed that. They did well, they started well, but I think the Bayern Munich handled after that, after like 25-30 minutes, they handled the game pretty well, and we could see that. I would say, as always, Bayern was superior as Dortmund, because they are everywhere better than them. And well, even if we can talk about the penalty which should have been given to Dortmund against Boateng, Bayern was the best team on the field.
We'll talk about the penalty in a moment, but Shaq, just overall, I think if I'm Borussia Dortmund, I'd be disappointed, because Bayern were good, but they weren't great today.
I totally agree. And up until the goal, I thought Dortmund were by far the better of the two teams. I was really surprised at how easily Dortmund passed through Bayern's high pressure, even after about 15 minutes when they started to drop off just a little bit more. I thought Dortmund coped well and again passed through their midfield in a way that I don't think I've seen anybody do against Bayern for quite some time. But given what we've seen from Dortmund, particularly since the restart, you figured that possession, those chances that they had would tell, and they'd make it count. But somehow they didn't. And then once Bayern got the goal, I thought quite clearly they showed their own superiority. They didn't have to go gung-ho looking for something. They knew that Dortmund would come. And at that point, they coped very well, a whole lot better with everything that Dortmund had to throw their way.
Let's talk about the penalty incident. Of course, the big discussion. Boateng slipping, going down. Haaland with a shot, and it clearly comes off Boateng's elbow. a couple of issues here. No one appealed for it from the Borussia Dortmund camp. Of course, that doesn't really mean anything. But what they did do is take that corner quite quickly, which meant there wasn't a lot of time for VAR to take a look at this and intervene. Because you feel, Craig, if VAR looked at this properly and looked at the replays that we all saw, then it should have been a penalty.
Absolutely, and the fact that they couldn't get there quickly enough and instruct the referee to go to the monitor is disappointing in such a big game. Because, look, clearly Boateng slipped, there's not a doubt about it. But in the act of, if he was trying to get himself back up from lying down naturally, i.e. putting the hands down to get himself back up, it would have been fine, but he didn't. He raised his arm out and made himself bigger, and obviously the Haaland shot was deflected wide. It was a big moment in the game. It wasn't adjudged properly by VAR and the officials, and Bayern Munich got away with that.
What do you think, Frank?
I agree with Craig. Even if I think that even if they kick the corner kick very quickly, you have like 3 or 4 people in some studios, checking all the cameras, and they have the time to say to the ref, "Oh, don't stop everything. We have to check just before the corner," because as Craig said, he is on the floor. Of course, he slapped, but at the end of the day, he reminds me of Kimpembe against Manchester United. Even if he turns his body, he extends his body and touch the ball with his arm. So it's a handball, and that's clearly the rule. And the game should have been stopped and checked, the monitor, and give a penalty.
Shaka, we discussed before how Bayern Munich have got all this experience in the side. Do you think that if this was roles reversed and it happened at the other end, Bayern would have appealed more, would have slowed the pace down, wouldn't have taken a corner before the referee had the chance to discuss it with VAR?
Absolutely, without question. Had this happened up at the other end, there's no doubt that VAR would have been able to review the tapes, and a penalty would have been given. Listen, I understand that none of the Dortmund players saw it, and it happened very quickly. You do sympathize. Similarly, it's in Dortmund's DNA to get things going quickly, to play at that higher tempo, especially when they're one down. But this for me is where maybe an official on the sidelines who can review it quickly, he raises the alarm, and that causes the players on the pitch to maybe take notice and then ask the questions of the referee. But once they take the corner quickly, once that alarm isn't raised and Dortmund do as you expect them to, then it goes. I just feel that, as you say, Dan, had this been Bayern Munich, not just because of their experience on the pitch, but their experience off it as well, they would have taken note, and somehow that would have been reviewed. And had it been reviewed, I think we all in agreement it was a penalty.
Cologne is your new Stockley Park, Craig. Were they just a little bit sleepy?
Well, it seems that way because they should have been. I can't remember how quickly the replay came in for us, but they should have been able to see that straight away within 4 or 5 seconds and halt the play. It didn't happen. But let's look at the other big decisions here, Dan, and we'll look at Lucien Favre. We talked yesterday with Jan, expecting Emre Can to play, expecting Jadon Sancho to play, and I go back to it. You're fit enough to come on at half-time and the desperation stakes. You're fit enough to start the game. Now, it's a big call. Delaney and De Hood have played since the lockdown was lifted, and they've done okay. But clearly, Emre Can is the first choice midfielder in there when fully fit. On the other side of the coin, Brandt and Hazard look quite sharp in terms of their movement and where they played and the positioning, tucking in a little bit, allowing the wing-backs to get forward early on. But the end product wasn't there. And again, the big decisions, games are running out. They needed to get something. And I know the players have been out, but Jadon Sancho and Emre Can not playing was a big call. Fitness, regardless of fitness, because they're fit enough to come on at half-time, fit enough to start the game. And you have to say, those will be the kind of questions that we're getting asked of Lucien Favre, because this title's gone now. This title has gone, not just for Borussia Dortmund, but for Bayer Leverkusen, but for RB Leipzig, and probably for Mönchengladbach as well, because this gap is just too big now.
But it was clearly desperate. He threw Jadon Sancho at half-time. Sancho didn't do anything, Craig. He was clearly not fit enough.
Well, he didn't do anything, but if he's fit enough to come on at half-time, he's fit enough to start. You know, it's sometimes difficult to come on and get into a game. But, you know, at the end of the day, he's either a big-time player for them or he's not. He's fit enough to come on at half-time along with Emre Can. He's fit enough to start the game. This was a game they probably had to win, but definitely couldn't afford to lose. And I agree, Jadon Sancho didn't have a great 45 minutes when he came on. But who knows if he'd have started the game? We just don't know. These are big calls with your big players, but it's hindsight now. The title has gone for them and the others because of this gap.
Frank? Dan, just let me interject. Just to that point, I think Sancho didn't have a good second 45 just because Bayern Munich were that good. You saw Sancho introduced late on, both against Schalke and in particular in the game against Wolfsburg. Once he came on, I thought Dortmund looked a whole lot better with Guerrero on one side and Jadon Sancho operating on the other. And that's where they won the game against Wolfsburg once he came on. So to not start him, I felt you weren't putting forward your best team, regardless of whatever injury he may be carrying. And once we go 1-0 down, and as we discussed earlier, I thought Bayern are the ones that you know had their foot on Dortmund's throat, so to speak. And the fact that Jadon Sancho didn't make much of an impact is more to do with Bayern Munich and their control of the game than any injury or lack of fitness that he brought, because he showed more than enough both against Wolfsburg and against Schalke.
Frank, why are you pulling a face?
Because I think we're not in a dressing room and we're not every day, you know, seeing the training sessions. And on top of it, we saw the two last games and how they played with Haaland at front and Brandt and Hazard on the right side, and it worked very well. And when you're a coach, you have to make decisions. Sometimes they're hard, even if you have the two best players. Sancho and Emre Can are maybe the two best players. I don't know if Craig says that and Shaka says that is maybe a reason why. But really, you know, you try to have some certitude. And the last two games showed that it worked that way, that Sancho and Emre Can are not fit enough. So if you play against the best team, you're going to put your best players. And the best players were the players that we saw the two last games playing and did very well. So why do you want to change against a certain uncertainty towards some two other players who are not fit enough? So I agree with Favre. You have to take that team who worked very well for the last two games and change half time. And the result is when they came on, they didn't bring anything much. So that was maybe the right decision to not put them at the first beginning.
Yeah, but they didn't go. Let's go back to Shaka's point and your point before that, Frank, which slightly goes against what you're saying. Is you said that Bayern Munich managed the game very well as the game went on. So therefore, and Shaka was making that point, it is more difficult for a substitution at times to come on and make an impact when you have a team who are 1-0 up with the experience of Bayern Munich, who are sitting pretty deep, who have got two blocks in front of the penalty area. They're negating the abilities and the skill levels of these players. So it's difficult by the time the match is at that point for these players to come on and showcase their talents.
Of course, and I agree with you, but it doesn't say that it would have been better with Sancho and Emre Can at first, because they were not fit enough for me. And again, when you have what you saw the last two games with the three at front working very well, why do you want to change? You know, it's hard for a coach to say, okay, Hazard played very well, scored a goal, made assists, but I'm going to put Sancho back because he's better. Oh, wait, maybe he's not fit enough. So what do? You try to find the best solution, and I don't know if there is a good solution. You just have to try it.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.